Hello and welcome to the regular Wednesday show on This is Ibrox. I'm your host, Kyle McLean, and I'm joined by two fantastic guests as always. First of all, it's the World Ranger himself, JB. How are you doing this week?
Yeah, very well, thanks. International break's nearly over, so time to get back to the good stuff.
Oh, it's just nice having football to actually talk about at the weekend, or maybe it isn't. We'll get on to that later on. And it's my regular Wednesday buddy, Kyran Wallace. He's the rice to my Montana. I thought you'd appreciate that one, Kyran, tonight.
Oh, mate, you're well on point. I think Craig said in the last podcast as well about the 8 o'clock kickoff against Johnson. He's like, people on Sunday nights, you would rather be watching the NFL. I'm fully on board. The way Rangers are going just now, you would. I know a lot of people want to get a few sly comments about it, so a lot of people won't agree. But hey ho, here we are.
Well, that's it, man. But we'll see on today's show. We've got loads to discuss. Yesterday marked one calendar year that Philippe Clement has been the Rangers manager. Get the guy's thoughts on his year in charge, where it's gone wrong, where it's gone right. Does it matter that if he doesn't really have a style of play, talk about strongest teams, players that he's brought in? Do we think he's improved players? What's his long-term vision? Some comments on from Koppen on Oscar Cortes and Abdullah Sima. And obviously, there's a wee statement from John Gilligan just before, a couple hours before we came live as well. And Rangers are back at Rugby Park as they face Kilmarnock this Sunday. Kyran, I'll come to you first. Yesterday marked 1 year's Clement's time as Rangers manager, and I cannot believe what a quick year that has been. But obviously, he took over after Beale's disaster start to the season. Since then, I like stats, I like numbers. He's been the manager for 56 competitive games, 67% win rate, having lost 9 games, handful of decent performances in there that I can think of. Hearts 5-1, Betis away, Benfica away, Malmo away, if you can count that. Won the League Cup. Overall, Kyran, what's your thoughts on Clement's 1 year at Rangers so far?
I think you can divide it into two. I think you can divide it into the first half where he came in, like you said, replaced Beale after a sort of horrible spell at the club where he's not really done so well. He's took over a group of players who I feel like he got more than the best out of, because we were a struggling team at that point. And you look as well, comes straight in, wins the League Cup. That was a non-negotiable that had to be won, because we were up against Aberdeen, and that's the type of games that you expect us to win. You then look at pulling the gap back and going and challenging for the league and putting up a fight and putting up a challenge. Albeit I feel like we should have won the league, but I also feel that it was let down by us not bringing in a proper striker in the January window. I think life could have been a whole lot different had we done that. And then you look at the second half of it, which in terms of this season, the rebuild, he's basically had to deal with an absolute car crash, more or less, in terms of CEO leaving. We've not got a chairman, everything else that came with that. He's had to deal with something that no other manager in the past 15 years has had to deal with at Rangers. Don't get me wrong, people might misquote me with Gerrard came in when the club was a state and had to rebuild and stuff, but I still don't feel like it was on this scale. I felt under Gerrard that you could see the building blocks in the background coming together and assisting him, and everybody was pulling in the same direction. Although we weren't winning how much we felt that we should be winning, I feel that we knew we were moving in the right direction. Just now, off the field, we're not moving in the right direction, but I feel that I still feel that he's the man. I still feel that he'll pull us forward. We've got a young team that's going to develop. I still think the team that we had at the end of the season last year was a better team than we've got just now. I know that's arguable, but I feel that this is a young team that's going to develop and it's going to get better, and we're going to have to be that wee bit patient for it. But the one big, massive, huge monkey off on his back, he needs to beat Celtic. And that, I think that's it in a nutshell. Once he gets it out the road, I always think back to the Gerrard-Ryan Jack game. I felt like the tide turned after that game for us, and we knew we were going in the right direction then. I think for Clement, if he wants the tide to turn, because I feel with the vast majority of the support, the jury is very much still out.
Yeah.
So for me, keeping touch and distance, it's going to be tough. There's going to be some rough rides. There's going to be some very ugly wins. But if we can keep in touch and distance, and put in a performance and beat them in the new year, I think the tide very much turns in our favour, depending on where we are, and it turns in terms of the jury being out on Clement and getting a lot of fans off his case.
Yeah, no, that's it. I think it is an interesting one. I think a lot of what you said is right there, and we'll go on into a bit more specifics on some of the stuff. But in terms of, I mean, I do not think Clement was expecting the sort of second half of his year at Rangers to turn out quite the way it did, and that's certainly something we'll come on to. Is he done well in those circumstances? But JB, before we get into all that, you know, get on your soapbox.
There's a few people complaining about a bleeping noise. I'm going to disconnect this in case it's me.
That's okay. That's just Kyran talking for everybody for clarification. That's not a bleeping noise. There we go. It's away. It's just obviously a wee bit of mic feedback. But JB, what have you made of Philippe Clement's first year in charge? There's a comment here from Luke Gibson, and it says first 6 months great, second 6 months boring.
Yeah, I think Kieran's articulated it really well there in terms of the last 12 months. I can't recall, I don't know whether it's just because time's friendly, a roller coaster like the last 12 months. It just seems to be. I mean, I know we had the 55 season, everything that went on like outside of Rangers that year was difficult to deal with. But if you think about over the last few years, we've kind of seen the course of travel. You had the emotions of Seville, and then you ever felt as if we were quite where we needed to be. They very much took us last year to a point that was probably as disappointed that I've been for a really long time. I remember coming out of that Motherwell game at Ibrox and thinking, oh, all that hard work has just been undone in 90 minutes, and it just seemed to unravel. And I was hoping, and I still do. I think I agree with the comments there. I'm still behind the manager. I think there's a few things that he needs to stop doing. It's all right. It's easy for us to say that. He needs to stop doing silly things, in my opinion. And some of them silly things we've spoke to death. I'll use starting Kyran Dow in a game that you need to win, bringing him on in a Europa League game against Lyon when you think there's a chance you just need to get back into it. You need the next goal. And his inability to change things. I remember when he first come in, I remember making the quote, he's the first proper manager we've had, probably since Walter. And what I meant by that was somebody that had actually won titles at a good level, somebody that had been around Europe, someone that he almost just seemed to strive. He always seems to strive for the best. And all his press conference and ex-players that have managed them all spoke really highly of him. So I thought, right, this is it. This will do it. And then the first, I mean, I was trying to look earlier in terms of his unbeaten run. He went on a 16-match unbeaten run last year with a group of players that we'd all wrote off. If you think of the post-Limassol game, after getting beat away at Limassol, that was really embarrassing. I think it was one of the worst results we've ever had in the club's history, in my opinion. It was probably a handful that sit underneath that, and it was only because of how poor they were and the fact that they could beat us, and to be honest, on the night beat us quite comfortably. The way he turned that team round last year was absolutely sensational. So he still, for me, got a bit of credit in the bank for that, because that season could have spiraled. That could have been a 20, 30 point swing in favour of them. Frustrating the way kind of things did unravel. I think Kyran made the point there. We were probably a number 9 away from doing the business last year. It just felt as if when we needed that big goal, whether it was against them, whether it was that Motherwell game, for example, or the Dundee game where it unravelled away from home, the rearranged game, then we just didn't have that guy. We didn't have that, I dare say, a Shankland type player who mightn't do a lot, but you know what, the ball might hit off his arse and you score a 1 minute, last minute winner. So yeah, in summary, I think he's kept the respect in Europe. You could argue the Lyon game, but again, we've seen that. Lyon done that to us at Ibrox a couple of years earlier. If you look throughout the Premier League, you'll see teams like Man City will just sometimes just roll over a really good Tottenham team, an Arsenal team, a Liverpool team. So it can happen on the night. It doesn't matter whether it's home or away, because the quality of players, the gulf is there. Let's not kid ourselves with the likes of Lyon. However, I'll judge him against teams that he should be beating. So for me, he should be beating everybody in Scotland. He should be competing with them to a better standard than what I think we have. And in Europe, he should be beating the teams that we should be beating. Like I said on last week's pod, beating the likes of Malmo, beating the likes of, if we go back further, the likes of Midtjylland and the likes of the Prague teams. These are all within our areas, within our probably similar spending ranges, wages and everything else that goes with it. I'd probably throw Kiev into that as well. Which was really disappointed at the start of the season. But again, another thing he's had to deal with, which was unusual, was the Ibrox factor. I do happen to believe if that was a fully filled 50,000-seater Ibrox, then I think we'd have got through that. Now, whether Salzburg might have been a step too far, who knows? But then when you see Brest, who I'd fancy us if we were to come up against them, they went away and smashed Salzburg 5-0 in their own patch. So they probably weren't as great as probably what we've been used to, but our standards have probably dropped over the last 12 months just because of scar tissue in terms of what we've seen this group of players deliver. But all in all, we're still behind them. As I say, if you can cut out some of them things that really frustrate us, because I don't think it matters whether we're playing Real Madrid or Berwick Rangers. It's going to be the same formation, and for that suicide at times. And Brendan Rodgers is coming for a lot of grief for that. In Europe, the fact that you can't set up, are you going to play against St. Johnstone? Are you going to play against, who did they get smashed by the other week? Dortmund. You just can't do it. And that was one of the things that Gerrard was good at, Van Bronk was good at, was setting us up for different situations. So, but again, we just got to hope that the manager has got this plan. He spoke really passionately about the October-November view. The turnover of players that he's had. I actually think we've actually got a stronger squad now, probably a more robust squad, hopefully, it turns out. Out with Seema, I don't think we'll really miss anybody else that left, because most of them didn't deliver last year, or certainly for the last 12, 18 months. So, yeah, I'm I say, still backing him, but just it's still early days. But he's not going anywhere. I don't think we're going to yo-yo. As long as nothing dramatic happens, he's going to be with us till the end of the season. And to your point earlier, we need to see them stepping stones. We need to see signs. We need a big month this month, and we need a big win, a big result come January the 2nd.
Yeah, no, I know you've got me all emotional there talking about Abdullah Seema, man, and our Brest in the Champions League, thinking about what could have been had we beat Dynamo Kiev. But yeah, no, I think that was a pretty good summary of his year in charge there. And you've brought me on to my next point really nicely there, JB, and I'll come to you, Kyran, for this one. It's just talking about the sort of, I tried to split this up into sort of 4 categories in terms of how we discuss Clement. And it's the players that he's got at his disposal, the playing style, because I know that's a big talking point. You could probably spend an hour on a podcast alone talking about Clement's playing style, the results, and the rebuild that we have to do. But I want to talk about the sort of players and personnel. You look at the first window that Clement had. He brought in Diomande, Cortes, Fabio Silva, obviously, who's no longer at the club because of his loan. The second window was brought in by Rami, Proper, Egaman, Cherny, Jefte, Barron, Liam Kelly. I'll include Clinton and Cial in that one because the club did make a bit of a deal about it. And Cassin Virgio out, Lammer, Cifuentes, Cantwell, Wright, Lundstrom, Barisic, Jack, Davies and Roof. Do you think the squad is stronger now than what it was last year? I know JB's already given us an answer to that. And do you think that Clement gets the best out of the players that he has at his disposal?
I don't think the squad is stronger than it was, but that doesn't mean that it won't be. I think the squad's still very much in development. I'll be judging Clement's signings, but they're not so much his signings, it's more Niels Koppen. Yes. We're going to get on to that. I'll judge the rebuild come the start of next season. 3 windows is probably what you need with a rebuild. You're never going to get I'm trying to think the best way to put this. You're never going to get a hit with every signing. There's always going to be signings that don't work out. I always remember when we signed, we had Morelos, we signed Roof, we signed Itten, and we had Defoe as well. And I always remember saying, we play one up front. One of these guys isn't going to work out. We've spent money on someone that isn't going to work out here because it comes down to playing time, things like that. I know I'm going off on a wee tangent here. Turned out to be Cedric Itten, who went on to be a very good player. So, although he's not a hit at Rangers, it doesn't mean he's a bad player. So the signings which we've made, and when you're naming them there, Kyle, the vast majority, I think, have been hits. I think it's been a decent window so far. And when I say hits, I don't mean that we've won all sorts so far and we're steamrolling teams. I mean that we can see a lot of young players there, and there's youth that's came in that have done well, and we know that they're going to improve. Cortes a wee bit unlucky with injuries. I know that a lot of people have got negative views towards it at the moment. I think in terms of the player, he's a good player. You look, Igaman, Jefte, Barron, I'm just rhyming off the sort of younger players as well. You look as well, Barami looks a cracking signing. He looks like the pick of the bunch from them. You look back, Diamande, still quite young, a lot of games under his belt with experience. I think that's a good signing as well. So at the moment, I feel there's been a lot more hits than misses. I know that'll be judged on trophies and how many times we beat them and how well we do in Europe. But I think the team's going to improve. I don't think we are where we are last season. No, this might be arguable again, but in terms of Conor Barron, he's probably been one of the best signings, probably the best young Bosman that we've made in a long time. Does he start at centre mid this time last season? Probably not. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. We expected him to come in and be a squad player. He's come in and took his opportunity and held down that position. And I'm very excited to see where his development goes and how he improves. And I think it's testament to how well he's done in a short space of time that he got the call up to the Scotland first team, although he wasn't used. But it was good news for us that he didn't have to fly out to Kazakhstan before we need to go to Kilmarnock for the weekend, and he was an unused sub last night. So we'll take that, and him being part of a setup like that as well at that level, it's good. It's good for Rangers. Rangers players should be international football players.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that one. There's a few comments coming in here. Wessel18 says he's developed the spine of a team. I prefer Barron, Jefte to proper to the players that left those positions. Not sure that's a Clement or a Koppen success, but that's the way modern football should work, where all these sort of different departments, if you have them at a football club, are all coming together and working towards the same goal. RSC72 says Cherny and Proper are the only two that's questionable for me, so more Proper. And Luke Gibson says the team look better with an experienced CDM and a better striker. JB, I'll ask you this next question. Do you think that Clement has integrated players into the squad well? And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Do you think he's integrated the players into the squad well, and can you see what he's sort of trying to do?
Yeah, I can. In terms of integrating the players into the squad, I think we can only judge it as a fan. Do you know what I mean? We can't judge the fact that a player coming from a different country, a different climate, maybe can't speak the language. We just expect them to be able to put the shirt on and go. Do you know what I mean? And that's our right as fans. I think a few decisions as players have kind of come in, you've kind of gone, why has he done that? But then on the flip side, you then look at things. So you look at Bejrami, for example, and he's brought him in down the left, and we're all going, he's never a left-sided player, get him central. I've seen him central now a couple of times, and
stay the left.
Yeah, get him back on the left. And that's not necessarily because I don't think he can play that role. I think there's going to be games where he'll be an absolute dreamboat in that position. But there'll be other ones where he might need to use him in a number of positions. Albania, the last 3 times I've watched them, I don't know why I found myself watching 60, 70 minutes of Albania.
You love watching Albania, man.
Oh, God, honestly. Sitting watching Albania and starting to get to know the players and that, and the coaching staff. But I think it's he's been selected to play down the left for the national team as well, probably more than what we probably originally anticipated. I think it's because he does things different, and he's got that little bit of a spark, that bit that we used to see from Cantwell, where you go, that pass wasn't on. No, he's the only player on the pitch that could have seen that pass. I think he's got moments like that in it. We've just got to get him on the pitch and get him the ball quickly. And he'll deliver. He's going to frustrate the life out of us. I think there'll be any shock with that, because he's going to shoot from outrageous angles, and he's going to put crosses in that probably won't go anywhere. But he will do moments of absolute magic. I think in terms of the other players that have kind of integrated, I think he's, just fly through the list that you just mentioned then. So Bajrami, we've kind of talked about. Proper was a bit of a slow starter, but I think the domestic record kind of speaks for itself. The partnership he struck up with the other centre half he was with last year, who we were linked with, they had a lot of clean sheets last year in the Dutch league, and I think we're seeing why. One thing I've been surprised that he's a very different player on the telly and compared to at the match. I don't know if this makes sense. I think I might have said this last week. At the match, he really attacks everything, like fully blooded. Like if he decides he's going for it, he's going for it. He reminds me quite a lot of Hollander, but a little bit more rash than Hollander and probably better on the ball. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he continues to develop, because it's a huge change for him in terms of what he's come into. I think the problem he's got, because the season didn't start well in the fixtures where he first come in, I think all eyes are kind of out for him as if to say, oh, but it'll be from the same people that wanted Goldson nowhere near the club. It'll be the same people that don't want Tav near the club. It'll kind of be that, I'm not going to say minority because I think we're all on the same page as where Tav is now, but people have wanted Connor Goldson gone from the 55 season, and it was just like wild stuff. But I think he's going to be one to watch. Igamani, I think, he's still a little bit of a hit and miss. He come on against Dundee United, and I thought we've got like the new R9, and then he come on against somebody else in the League Cup game, and he just looked a bit awkward, didn't he? Probably trying a wee bit too hard. And then I say you go through them, but you've got someone like Jeffy that's come in. He's just absolutely hit the ground running, absolutely flying. Yep. Loves a yellow card. But you can see what he's going to give us. I'm just hoping we can get something similar with Casemiro on the right-hand side, because if we can integrate him on the right and Jeffrey on the left, that takes us back to and again, we can only use it because that was our last measurement of success, the 55 season, where the fullbacks were so important for us. Not necessarily with goals, but just the amount of assist and outlet that they give us. And the amount of energy that they had. But unfortunately, both Barisic and Tavernier have ran the race in terms of being able to do that on the pitch. So, yeah, in terms of your original question, and Conor Barron's probably, as Kieran touched on earlier, he's the highlight. I do think he probably would have got into last year's team, but I don't think that was a compliment to the midfield from last year. Because it's him out and Lundstrom in. Ryan Jack was never there to play. He was probably the only other one who would have potentially caused a bit of competition. So, yeah, I think it's. I think the signings for me so far are probably sitting at a 6, 7 out of 10. But I think there's definitely potential there to start rocking up towards your 8 and 9s if things start to go well. But I do think we still need them 1 or 2 in January just to give us that little bit more stability. Somebody in the comments put about the spine of the team. I think the spine's missing a 6. I think we can all see it, which I don't know whether that's just a modern football fan saying that we need a 6 because you see the likes of your Rodris and the Gravenbach at Liverpool and stuff. It's kind of been a new position that we're crying out for, but a 6 and I think this team's only a 6 and a 9 away from being decent.
Yeah, no, again, I think that's fair. So I'm only go, Kieran.
Can I jump in a wee bit while we're on the subject of a 6? I don't know how much of the Scotland game you guys seen last night, but I thought Kenny McLean looked like he would really have fit well into our midfield. I know I was very much on the fence with it, but having watched him in that game, I think he ticks a lot of boxes for what we need at the moment. Someone that can carry the ball out from the 6, a good ball winner, experience, good stature. He's had a decent career as well. I know that ship's probably sailed, but I think that's kind of the one that got away in terms of what we needed in there. I thought he played very well last night, along with John Suter, who's come under criticism this season. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah. No, that's it. And if Rangers are looking for a Kay McLean to play for them, let me know, man. Just message the Twitter page, all right, and we'll get right on that. But yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. It's the only thing. The one comment I keep hearing about Clement in terms of the players is he doesn't know his strongest 11, and that I don't want to say it's frustrating, but I just don't know if that's a concept anymore in modern football with the amount of games that footballers have to play and managers have to deal with it. I think you've got like a sort of strong 20, and I agree with you both. We are kind of heading in that right direction. I think on you go, Kieran.
Sorry to butt in again, Kel, but I think we're getting closer to it, right? And the reason I say that is how long have we went with rotating centre backs? Like. We've went a real run of games now with keeping a centre back pairing. It's been a long time since that's been. And Barron and Diamande in centre midfield seems to be a sort of like the nailed-on starters, if that's the way you want to put it.
Yep.
So I think we are getting closer to him knowing he's starting 11 in his strongest team, albeit is that strong enough, I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see, and just something I wanted to pick up on the Proper point as well. I was a bit concerned when Robin Proper came in, just because we were looking at that. What was his name? Was it Jose Cordoba, the guy that went to Norwich? Yeah, and I know there's Koppen's comments have come out in that in terms of that he didn't have the heart. Didn't want to invest in a guy that then was thinking, is Rangers the right club for me? But I just found it a bit bizarre that we went from signing a very highly rated under 23-year-old that is the experience at international football to a 31-year-old Dutch player. But no, I'm glad he's come in, and that's why I put him in the thumbnail tonight, because I have been impressed by Robin Proper. But listen, next, Kyran, I'll stick with you in this wee bit here. It's the style of play. Clement, and virtually every game that we've all watched has been a 4-2-3-1. I think there's 2 exceptions when we were away to Sparta Prague, and sometimes when we were out of possession against Dynamo Kiev away, we sat in a 4-4-2. Other than that, I cannot remember us veering too much off of that path. What do you make of, I don't know what to call it, is it stubbornness that we just never changed formation? Because that was the sort of idea that I had of Clement when he came in, that he would adapt to the opponent.
Yeah, it's one of these ones as well where I listened to a lot of podcasts before Clement came in, when we knew that he was going to be the man, and it was journalists and stuff that had followed his time at in Belgium and for Monaco. Excuse me, guys. And every single one of them said the same thing when it came to style of play. What is his style of play? And every one of them said he's not really got a style of play. It's pretty mixed. And I think that's what we've experienced, that if it's on to go long, then you go long. If it's on to play out for the back, we play out from the back and we build up, but try and be direct. We try and get forward quickly. Now, the whole style of play argument has only come about since we've not been doing well. When we were doing well, when we were getting back in the running for the league, like, nobody mentioned anything about a style of play. Now, don't get me wrong, I think you're bang on, Kyle, with the stubbornness with regards to the formation. Now, we went away to Parkhead early this season, and he did change the middle 3 and try to put Stelling in as a 6, and it just did not work whatsoever. And I don't think it worked for Stelling personally. Probably his poorest game in the Rangers shirt. So that's another way that you need to look at it, right? If you're to change that style and the formation and how we go about approaching other teams, do you have the personnel to do it? We go back to the point about not having a number 6. The answer is no, we don't. We don't have the personnel to go and sit in against another team. I know people say that Raskin or Barron could play the number 6 position. They're not number 6s. These guys are box-to-box midfielders and ball carriers. It's glaringly obvious that we need that position to then be adaptable and flexible in terms of formation and shape and how we approach other teams. Again, we go back to the Motherwell game. I think Stuart Kettlewell laid the blueprint for how you come out and beat Clement's team, and a lot of teams have kind of copied it, but we've not adjusted. I remember under Gerrard, we were very stubborn with the 4-3-3, and then all of a sudden, I think we adapted to, let me get this right, it was a 4-3-2-1, where the midfield, depending on what side the other team were coming down, that middle 3 adapted almost as a 4, with the left of centre mid that kind of worked out to left mid, the right of right mid worked out to right mid, and your wide guys kind of dropped into the 10, and that started to work for us. I think there needs to be a sort of adjustment here with Clement in terms of how we adapt what we're doing just now. It doesn't have to be a full-on rip it up and start again. It can be tweaks, and this is how we're going to do it. I think it's a good opportunity with a player like Bajrami and Tom Lawrence firing on cylinders that we could have a more, let me think how to put this, not direct, we can have everybody inside the field while the full backs get higher up the field. But again, we come back to personnel. Is Tavernier going to bomb up and down the line at 33 years old and a hell of a lot of miles on the clock? No, that's another issue. So in terms of adaptations and tweaks to the formation, I think it would benefit him, but I don't think he's got the personnel to do it.
Well, that's interesting you talk about, Tav, because I saw another right back at the club smashing two. Well, his predominant position is right back. He was playing left back for the Netherlands under 21s, and he had two very, very good assists in that game. If you've not seen those, go and check them out. But listen, RFC 72 here says the 4-2-3-1 doesn't get the best out of our players, especially the midfield. All our midfielders are all more suited to a 3, and I think we see Dio, Barron, Raskin go to another level in a 3. And yeah, we will only know if we ever see it there, RFC 72. JB, question on the style of play for you, and it is, what do you make of Clement's ability to adapt or lack of ability to adapt during games? And I've left this, specifically left this question for you, because that's the other thing I see is substitutions. Substitutions are rubbish, but I don't know. Sometimes I come away from games going, what the hell? Why did they bring Dowell on? And then other times I come away from the games going, unbelievable substitutions. What's your thoughts on his ability to adapt in subs?
Yeah, I think Kieran touched on most of the stuff there in terms of the shape and formation. The only thing I was going to probably add is we're probably Stephen Davis away from having a really good spine there. I mean, without reminiscing too much, I mean, Stephen Davis a few years ago, what he done was just made other players better. And having someone with that composure, and potentially that's what Kenny McLean probably could have done. Obviously, not to as high of a standard, but someone that could just sit there, take the ball off the back four, keep it moving, keep it ticking, pass, move, coordinate. I think that's what that team's really missing. You can't expect the Conor Barron to do it. You can't expect. So that's in terms of the personnel, but in terms of his game management, it's really strange because in Europe, you kind of sometimes will go through 2 or 3 different formations throughout the game. So if I think about Kiev, you touched on Kiev away, Malmo. Was Malmo, wasn't it? Yeah. That Malmo, wasn't it? Yeah. I was there. I was there. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, my mind went.
Well, you're pyro.
Yeah, no, we have a pyro. Don't blame me. Yeah, we changed formation quite a lot, and you've seen players kind of covering for each other, and it might be a case of that player will spend 5 minutes in that position while that player sits in. But domestically, it just almost just feels as if and this is the one thing that does worry me. We'll wait for somebody to do something, and then we will do something. Something will happen. Again, unfortunately, the only kind of barometer for us at the moment is to compare ourselves to them across the city. If you ever watch them, either against us or against anyone, every single one of their players will run into space looking for the ball. Our players are, I know I say it in the WhatsApp group a lot, we are the ball watchers FC, because the amount of players that we've got that just prefer to go, I'll wait for him to do something and then I'll see where we go. The only exception to that is maybe we've got a lot of players that maybe if we can afford to get ourselves 2-0 up in games, you might start to see them play so much better, and the confidence might start to come through. It is a very young squad, so the expectation to play under, you're probably not going to meet many more demanding fans than us. We can be the best fans in the world if you earn the right to be. If you earn the right to have us, but if you don't, then we're going to make it hard for you, and that's just in our DNA. There's no point. I know people have said was it last week's pod we spoke about expectation. It's what makes us who we are. Do you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, that expectation is going to be here a long time, and a lot of the players and the managers and anybody else that's connected to the club, that expectation is always going to be there. It was there when we went to Division 3. Do you know what I mean? And it will continue all the way. And it doesn't matter whether we're playing Leipzig in a semi-final or Queen of the South in a friendly. The expectation is we've got to go beat them. We don't care how good they are. Don't get me wrong, I also think we're realistic, and we can be balanced at time, as long as we can see, and we touched on it earlier, under Gerrard, for example, signs of improvement. And that was probably Gio's downfall as well, in the fact that we could see in Europe, don't worry, you're cool, we get it, you can play European games, but we just knew when it comes to domestic, that slow ball possession, it wasn't beating anyone, yet he kept doing it. I think he needs to try and find solutions that get us scoring more. Unfortunately, you could probably say he maybe hasn't got the personnel for that. That's something that he does need to address. Unfortunately, we've got the Nigerian nightmare leading the line, who will finish the season probably on 25 goals, because he will score goals. but that 25 goal season striker is probably a 35 goal season striker if you've got somebody that is clinical. And again, we're not going to turn this into a serial Dess's dishing session, because I think the big fella's had it probably enough of that. But unfortunately, that's if we're not going to start winning games comfortably, it's your Tavs, it's your Dess's that are going to get it, because it's fine margins. And if we win a game 4-5-1 and Tav makes a mistake and Dess's misses a couple, you're going to go, all right, on to next week we go again. If we win a game 1-0 and Dess's misses a couple, or 2-1 and Tav makes a mistake, then the knives are going to be out. So I think it's almost the case of he needs to try and find a way to get us starting games much, much better. And we've got to come out flying. I've always had the theory in Scotland, especially against most teams apart from them, we could probably afford to go down to 10 men in the first 5 minutes and still win the majority of games. And we've proved over the years that we do that. So if we know that we can do that, why aren't our players coming out absolutely flying and just bullying teams? The amount of games in that 55 season and over the years, if you think back to the really good teams, it wasn't always because we had fantastic players. It was because we had players that worked harder than the opposition, and the quality then shone through. So, back to your original question in terms of being able to change things. That is my concern. The biggest concern at the moment is that he can't find ways, and he's still waiting on individuals to probably drag us out. The likes of Todd Cantwell, the amount of games Todd Cantwell went through a little patch last year, 5-6 games on the bounce during that good winning run, where he was I remember a game against Motherwell and it was a bit flat. And next thing he plays a quick 1-2 at the edge of the box, bang, we score. Then we scored again because he had an assist. I think it might have been Kyran that scored, funny enough. And it was one of them games where you go, oh, things are clicking here. Do you know what I mean? We can start to see things. But yeah, as I said, touched on earlier, I think it's still, we still need to understand what his style of players, and if he hasn't got one and he's relying on individuals, then he's going to need better individuals, because I don't think the group of players that we got at the moment are going to deliver week in, week out for him. I think we've got players that will contribute throughout a season, but I don't think we're going to have a player. We should have at least 1 or 2 players that's an 8 or a 9 every single week. And unfortunately, you can count on one hand how many players this season have achieved an 8 or a 9. And unfortunately, it's probably your Conor Barrons and your Hefties that are giving you them decent numbers. Everyone else for me has just been kind of just pretty level or dropping and then back up again. So it's, and I think somebody put in the comments there in terms of getting the most out of the players. Diamandi, for me, I still don't think we know how to utilise him. And I get all the guys who love all the footy stats and the numbers and go, it's not his fault that the setup's not right. Well, you know what? If you're a good enough player, go and stamp your authority on a game. Do you know what I mean? Go beat a man, go and win a big tackle, go and have a shot into the top corner. I do think a formation change, I think, would suit Diamandi massively. I'd like to see us just go to a 4-4-2. To be honest, I think we're in that area now of, if we're going to rely on individual magic, you're more likely to get it out of a 4-4-2 than what you are this current formation that we've got, because it's just wild. We haven't got wingers that are going to hit the byline. So why play 2 players wide? Because they're not going to hit the byline. So I don't think he's getting the most out of the squad just yet. But I do think he gets it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's going to be naive. But unfortunately, we will be unforgiven if he doesn't come through this month. So, but we'll wait and see.
Well, that's it. It's certainly going to be a big month. We'll maybe touch on that towards the end of the podcast there. But yeah, I think that was in terms of his ability to adapt during games, I think that was a fairly good answer there, JB. Look, I'll come to you, Kyran, in the next bit here, and its results, and it's quite a simple, short question, this, and it's one of the biggest criticisms of Clement in his time here, is that he's not done it enough in the big games. Do you agree, Kyran?
I'd probably say the Old Firm games. He's had a few good results in big games in terms of away to Betis. We've done well away to
Benfica
again. Yeah, Benfica, Malmo as well, Kiev as well. You could even say away from home. So he has done okay in the big games. Aberdeen League Cup final. again, it was a grind, but we were the better team. We deserved to win that day. When we talk big games, it doesn't get bigger than the Old Firm for us. He's got to win that. That is just the huge elephant in the room that's going to follow him about and it's going to haunt him until he does actually beat them. It may be that, I don't know, if we do well enough, we might meet them in the League Cup final before Christmas. Yeah, so it could be a double header within a month. So for Clement, it is just the huge big bugbear, and it's what annoys the fans the most, that he's got to come up with a way to beat them. Like I say, you go back to Gerrard, our last proper successful manager domestically. He found a way. It took him a while, but he found a way. And when he found that, like I say, the tide turned. So Clement has to do the same. We've got to forget what they're doing at the other side of the city and just concentrate on us, go one game at a time. So in terms of the big games, he's got 2 this month domestically. One comes this Sunday away to Kilmarnock, and then the other one's at the end of the month. Well, 10 days after it. Away to Aberdeen. So we spoke about it last week. It could make or break our season.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge month this month, and not forgetting the small matter of playing Steaua Bucharest in the Europa League at home as well next week. But yeah, JB, I'll come to you here for the next point, and we'll sort of get into the rebuild side of things, which I don't think Clement was maybe expecting it to be as big a rebuild as what it was. But how do you think that he's done, given the circumstances? Given that, I mean, everybody knows we don't have a chairman, we've got an interim chairman at the minute, not somebody in a fixed position. We don't have a CEO. We don't have a head of academy. Now we don't have a director of football operations, and I think it's a few weeks now. Do you think that Clement's vision will come together despite all of these sort of off-field disasters, I'm going to say?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's probably my honest answer. I think in terms of he did, as touched on earlier, he spoke a lot of it in terms of when he thinks things will start to gel. I think he's probably targeted this international break as quite a big one to kind of get people in, assess where we are, see what the situation is. You're going to have a lot of players there. This will be the second. Is this the second international break since the? Yeah, it is. Of course, after the Old Firm. So there's a big core of players there that wouldn't have been on international duty that have now they've come through the first international break, probably just post the the transfer window, because the transfer window was very tight, wasn't it? It was like the day before or something, before a couple of days before the season ended. So therefore, having these guys kind of coming in, they've had a chance to look around the club, get to know the club, another solid week with teammates. So hopefully this is going to be the time, right? These guys are settled. That excuse is gone now. You're not a new player anymore. Expectations there. You've played at Ibrox. You've played in a couple of decent away games. You've played at Parkhead. You've played in Europe. So you've kind of seen a little bit of everything now. So in terms of that new feeling, there will be a few players, because me and my dad were talking about this today, in terms of what you've got the plastic pitch on Sunday. What factor is that going to have? There'll be some players. Might have a little guest joining us here, by the way. So
that's okay.
Little Teddy's decided to pop around.
That's right. If you need to go and deal with them, I'll put you. I'll ask you what I've got questions for Kyran.
Now I won't do the BBC thing and get the nanny to drag him out.
What's his opinion? What's his opinion? The 4-3-3-1.
Yeah, get him out, get him.
That's that exactly. But listen, JB or Kyran, I'll ask you that there, because I've actually got the next sort of question I had lined up for you. And I remember it when Clement came in, right? And it was still one of my favourite things I think I've ever seen a Rangers manager do, is he's been introduced to the press in the Blue Room for the first time, and he's talked about his 4 pillars: the best tactical, best technical, best physical, and best mental teams. How far off do you think Clement is from getting to this vision in October, as he's told, because this is the month, October, November, that is the months that he's told us that we are expected to see the best Rangers team. How far off it do you think Rangers and Clement are at the moment?
I think we're a bit to go, and it's not helped, like JB said there, with the off-field stuff. Trying to implement that to the players while they see everything that's going on in the background at Rangers and the lack of stability can't really help much. I think he's got a job in his hands trying to keep the players focused on what we actually do on the pitch and what we do in the training field and getting results. Mentality was something that we spoke about at length last season, where there was a lot of scar tissue with the players in terms of getting results in big games and results against that lot. So mentality, and I know the phrase serial losers get bandied about a lot. So Clement's still got a long way to fix in that. And that, like we spoke about constantly, the big games are starting to roll in. So we're only, 7 games into a league season just now. It's not much, is it? So it's hard to judge at the moment. But yeah, it's a team very much in development. It's a team that's going to improve. We are always going to be the team's harshest critics. So in terms of the 4 pillars, I think the one top of the bill is probably mentality. Mentality is the one that we really need to pick up on.
That's it. And just quick question before we move on. I'm just looking for a number here, JB. How would you rate Clement's year out of 10?
Good question. 7.
I think that's fair. And Kyran, typical politician, darting away from the answer here, but we'll get there. He's back. Out of 10, Kyran, what would you rate Clement's first year in charge at Rangers? He's
always gone mute.
He's muted himself.
Not anymore. I'm going to say the same as JB. For God's sake. And I'm going to say 7. I'm trying to plug my charger in here. We've been at the lab tonight, haven't we? Just for the sheer fact that it started like a house on fire. It's been tough sledding in terms of the squad rebuild and everything he's had to do out with his power off the field. So credit to him. He stuck with it. I felt at one point I think there's more to that contract extension that we all know. It sort of feels like he was sold a dummy in terms of everything that happened, and he stuck by us, and we always say he's the most stable thing at the club at the moment. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I think 7's quite a fair grading.
Yeah, I think 6, 7. I agree with you both. I think 6, 7 is there or thereabouts. As you said, he's had lots of stuff to deal with, and I mean, on the thumbnail tonight, I mean, he's holding up a shirt saying he's here to 2028, and I don't think he's going anywhere, even if it's not a brilliant finish to the rest of the season. But as you said, I am filled with eternal hope. Like JB, I'm trying to see the positive side of things. You know, we will get some players back from injury. That is, I mean, all the things that he said we would do, we've done. Lower the wage bill, get younger players in, and okay, apart from you could maybe argue Ridvan and Cortes, who we'll come on to next. I unintentionally linked into that one quite nicely there, Kyran. But yeah, other than those in terms of injuries, I think that's it there. But listen, Niels Koppen came out today, had a couple of interesting things to say. I really felt he said he's talking about Oscar Cortes, Abdullah Sima as well. He talked about Abdullah Sima, there being a fee that was agreed that was actually higher than Oscar Cortes. And the other thing he talks about Cortes, he says, Oscar came in with a blank injury record, no injuries, no scans, everything was perfect. We're looking into it as a club. I'm still confident the move and bringing him here. We signed him on a 5-year deal and still believe in his potential for a longer period. What do you make of Koppen's comments there?
I think it's quite refreshing to hear from the guy that's in charge of the transfers and how we're looking to move forward with regards to the player trading model. I think it was put nicely in Heart and Hand today that for a long time we didn't have anyone taking responsibility for signings in the past, but I think Niels Koppen has been front and centre of everything and basically telling the fans where we're going and how we're going to go about it. The signings, in terms of Cortes, I'm very much on the boat of he's here for 5 years, he's not going to be injured for 5 years. I hope that's not the kiss of death, but
yeah.
I feel there's a really good young player in there that is going to put a run of games together. File that under Tom Lawrence and Suter, who went through such a torrid time when they first came in the door, and now they're seeming to put a good run of games together. And they're starting to bear fruit. In terms of Sima, that one breaks my heart a wee bit. I think, again, file that under Malik Tillman, someone who's going to go on and do a lot better, and Brighton are going to get a lot more for him than we can now afford because of what he's doing in the Champions League for Brest. Another sore one to take, but I think it's another lesson for us to learn that if we're going to make things like loan signings, let's try and get things negotiated and agreed beforehand, that if these players still really do take off while we've got them in loan, that they're within arm's reach for us to afford. So yeah, tough one to take. I'm glad he's front and centre, because I think everyone was under the impression of, oh, because we didn't get the Champions League football, Sima was announced by Brest the day after we get put out by Kiev. It seems that very much wasn't the case. It does seem that, I think JB touched on it before we came on air, that it sounds very much that a fee was agreed and we were talking to the player and his agent, and again, we're not going to play over the odds for players.
Yeah, and neither we should, but I mean, it's just the irony of him now being Brighton's all-time leading goal scorer in the Champions League, and Brighton have never been in the Champions League. There's no way we can afford him now. But listen, GB, just before we move on to the Kelly game, there, just want to say, John Gilligan, interim chairman, released a statement today. Just a sort of brief summary of it was he discussed the sort of use of pyro, the fact that Rangers will have 2 fines. Talked about the sort of the recruitment consultants already have a list for CEO plus chairman, and he sort of, you know, maybe felt it had to come out and defend the club a wee bit, saying that there is no lack of leadership at the minute with the exodus that's happened, and Craig Robertson being the latest name to that. What's your thoughts on just the fact that this statement's come out, and the message is fairly basic but pretty clear, would you say, from it?
Yeah, no, I would say so. I think in terms of, at the end of the day, if nothing else, he's ticking the box of talking to us. Whether we don't like what he's selling, but at the end of the day, we've, as fans, we demanded a rebuild. We're getting a rebuild. We demand the chairman and the club come and talk to us. They're talking to us. So sometimes we've just got to just take it, and obviously we'll have our opinions and our observations. I think there was some bits in there that I did like. I like the fact that, as I touched on earlier, that he's given us the update. Got to be a little bit careful, I think, again, in terms of some of his wording, in terms of the way he says things. Like, oh, it's almost like that meme where the hospital's on fire and the guy's going, everything's fine. Because at the end of the day, there is a lot of leadership not there, and that's just factual. So I appreciate him and George Latham. We'll be doing a fantastic job behind the scenes, and probably two really good Rangers men that have had successful business careers. They got the club at heart, which is something that we always want. However, we can't run things like I've heard the phrase a bowling club. It's not a social club. This is a multi-million pound business, and I don't think any of these people would accept this in their general walk of life. It's almost as if, it's Rangers, it's the club of support, the club of love. The question is, would you run your business like this? If the answer is yes, then fair enough. It means that they've been very successful, and we must be being successful. However, if the answer is no, then you're not in the right place. So I think some of the bits in terms of there's loads of leadership, everything's great. That was a little bit of an issue. But I think in terms of the way that he spoke about the manager, he spoke about the players, he addressed the fact that we've had good and bad results this season. Again, it'd be quite easy just to be a happy clapper and just pull out all the positives. So the fact that he addressed that was pleasing. And obviously he spoke around in terms of the positive impact that the Koppen stands had to the disabled fans, which is invaluable. And I mean, I know we've spent a bit of money to do it, but in terms of the emotion, we all love going to the game, and fortunately, if we all got our health, then going to watch Rangers healthy and being able to navigate around the stadium, being able to avoid the rain and the elements, then probably things we just take for granted. However, there's a group of fans there that have been put through the absolute mill for years. I used to have my season ticket in the West Enclosure on the 4th row back, and we used to get absolutely tethered with the rain and the snow. It was horrific, and I used to think the wheelchairs were just a few rows in front of us. And so for them guys, a lot of them would have put in a hell of a lot of hard yards. So it's pleasing to see that they're getting the reward. Just got to make sure that they can see the game and not filled with smoke and flags by the sounds of it. So Yeah, no, I think it was good to see. I think obviously you're going to get onto the pyrotechnic stuff separate, but he's addressed all the big items that are coming out. Maybe if he could do that, maybe on a monthly basis, just to keep us informed as to where we're up to. Even if it's to say, you know what, we're at a shortlist now stage with the CEO, with the chairman. We've got 5 names. We're going to be looking to whittle that down. We're doing interviews over the next few weeks. That type of stuff on a monthly basis, as long as it's not kicking the can down the road too much. We'll be knocking on 12 months since Bisgrove left. But for all his faults, he was in role. Do you know what I mean? And everything else.
Well, that's it exactly. It's nice to see a bit of communication. That's what we've been crying out for years. But I do think, you know, the board at Rangers sometimes do get their knickers in a bit of a twist in terms of they're too fearful for saying information in case it turns out to be wrong. You know, it's a part and parcel of it. Is sometimes you do get stuff wrong, and you know, it's not a bad thing for people to hold their hands up and admit that they got it wrong every now and again. But listen, Kyran, we've just got a few minutes to talk about the game at the weekend. Rangers are travelling away to Rugby Park to play Kilmarnock. I didn't actually realise how poorly I would say that they've been doing. They're 9th in the league. They've only won 1 game all season. They've got 6 points. What type of Rangers team are you expecting to rock up at Rugby Park at the weekend, given that we've had 10, 11 days with the players that went on international duty to train?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Maybe not so much the starting 11. I think that more or less picks itself. But I'm looking forward to hearing Clement's presser this week to hear who's fit and who's back. Hopefully we get some good news on guys like Ridvan, Danilo. I know he had spoke about Matondo and Cortes being more longer term, but it looks like Matondo's back on the grass, so we may see him soon, albeit I don't really rate him. We could be doing with a wee bit more on the wings.
More like he's smoking it.
He'd probably be better with that. Interesting to see how Tom Lawrence is doing, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of lineup he goes with. I think it does pick itself, though, depending if Lawrence is fit or not. But I think in terms of if Ridvan's fit, it'll be interesting to see what happens there with the left back slot, because at the moment it's Jefty's to lose. Albeit, though, Jefty can play left mid, and I think he would be an asset there in terms of we do lack a wee bit of pace and directness on the left since we lost out to Sima. So yeah, I think at some point you may see a Ridvan left back with Jefty in front of him, and I really wouldn't be opposed to it.
Oh, it's a difficult one for me. I think Jefty's been really, really, really good for Rangers this year. A young player playing in that position, for me, he keeps that position until he does something wrong, or Yilmaz is unbelievable in training. But JB, I see you're nodding your head away there. What would your predicted lineup be for the weekend?
Yeah, I think Ian touched on it there. You're going to be looking at Butland, Tav, Suter, Proper, Hefte, Baron, Diamandi, Cherny, Lawrence, Bajrami with the Nigerian Nightmare up top. I don't think there'll be anything else that comes in will probably be more a surprise. That 11 that's the 11 that he's kind of built. Obviously, the players that he's brought in, I can't foresee him throwing a Casawero or a Igmani on the plastic pitch. And again, Tom Lawrence, he's going through a good vein of form here at the moment, without too many injuries and stuff. Do we really want him on that pitch? That might be the one that might throw things a wee bit. You might potentially see a bit of a shock of a maybe Sterling thrown in the midfield just to keep us nice and solid to start with Diamandi up one. But I do agree. There'll be certain games where I think Ridvan left back with Hefte in front, I think will be really good. I don't think bringing Ridvan back onto that plastic pitch would probably be the best to do either. So yeah, I think for all them reasons, I think the team picks itself. We just don't know what players going to come back post international as well. Cherny played some decent minutes. Bajrami played decent minutes. Delighted Steve Clark masterclass didn't send Baron to Kazakhstan, because that would have been a bit of a hellish journey to get back, I'd imagine. So yeah, I think that's where we'll see.
Yeah, no, but it'll be interesting to see if Lawrence does start in that one. And for me, by the way, it's no coincidence that since Bayrami's come in that he has significantly upped his game because there's a possibility of his position being like, it's almost like competitions in certain areas makes players play better. It's really weird, that, isn't it? But listen, just before we go, Kyran, I'll just get a wee score prediction, because there was one week I didn't ask for a score prediction and JB was not happy with me after it. So I've always got in big letters at the end of my agenda score prediction. So fire away, Kyran, what's your score prediction?
I'm going to go 2-1 Rangers. I know we've been going to do the clean sheets, but Kilmarnock, hard place to go. It's going to be a grind. Last time we went there, it was a grind. Tom Lawrence with a great finish to win the game, if we remember rightly, and Butland with the probably his best save of the season. So I'm going 2-1 again for Rangers. Fingers crossed.
Was that the Lundstrom handball game?
Yes, it was. The later went to, was that the one that went to the independent panel who said it shouldn't have been given? Where have we seen that before?
Yeah, there's a lot of that seeming to happen. Yeah, what a game that was. That was, I'm trying to raise that game from memory because that was the bloody first Cortes injury as well. And JB, what's your score prediction for this game as well?
1-0, Tav Pen.
Oh, that would certainly get
this, man.
I know, man. I don't know if my nerves can handle that. I've had a piece for nearly 2 weeks here. But Tongo here says 2-0 Rangers, and Wessel 118 also says 2-0 Rangers. So that seems to be, people think we'll get a couple of goals. It'll be nice to see, as you said, Kyran, we have been sort of keeping the back shut, not letting goals in, but we've not really been scoring any. So it'd be nice to get more than one in a game. And a wee, I'm gonna chuck out Hamza Yigaman there in a 2-0 victory. But listen, we'll see for that. Thank you to everybody for tuning in, watching. We will be back this Sunday. That'll be Craig. It'll just be the regular Sunday show. I can't quite remember who's on with them, but they'll be talking about that Kilmarnock game, bringing you all the latest post-match reaction from that. Just remember, we are also on audio platforms. We're on Spotify, on Apple. Catch us on there. And if you have liked the content, just give us a wee like, subscribe, share, comment, and turn on those notifications. But thank you to both my guests tonight, as always, and we'll see you all again soon.